Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Mortgage, and I'm here with my co-host, Daniela. Now, when we air this, it will be over, but today is election day here in Canada.
I'll have to get out there and vote because it's very important. I think there's a lot of eyes on this election, not only in Canada, but all over the world.
And I think that this is probably one of the biggest elections historically that Canada will have. It will really set the tone of where we're going to be for the next 4 or even potentially 8 years, with so many changes in Canada over the last 9 years with the Liberal Party and what we've seen during even COVID and the shifts in every dynamic of what is the fabric of Canada and its economy. This election is going to be pivotal in terms of where we go forward. I saw a stat yesterday that there was a 25% increase in the amount of people that voted versus where we were in 2021. So that's good news.
Yep.
The 7.2 million, I think, voters.
Yeah,
that
and that
we
was
saw.
the preliminary voting. So that's awesome that people showed up early.
And when I went, so I went the very first day, there was a 40-minute wait, which is good. And I actually ended up going to another site to see if I could get in faster, and I was able to walk in right away. So when you went, let's talk about when you went. Was there a busy lineup, or did you go do it before?
I went on the last day of early voting, and one thing that really surprised me was seeing the vast demographics. It wasn't just people my age. It wasn't just older people. It was everyone. And I think it was just really nice to see people come out, and it's our duty as Canadians to have a say in how our country moves forward. And I know there's a lot of people that are struggling right now. We've been through a lot. It was just really nice to see everyone come out and place their vote.
I actually noticed that as well. And I think what was really nice, like even when I was at the first location for voting, a lot of people were just really excited to see people there, having conversation with family members and individuals there that were in lineups, just happy that people were out to vote, not even asking who you're voting for, just happy to see you out. And I think that shows the fabric of what Canada is about, that we all come together in the end for the collective good. Doesn't matter what side you're on. And I've said this for this election as well. Obviously, there's someone that I voted for, and I've been pretty vocal, and I will say that I am voting Conservative this time. I do think we need change, but regardless of the party that does come in, I will still support the initiatives and the hope that going forward, things will change for a better and stronger Canada, which is what we need, given the environment that we're dealing with across the border. So hopefully we'll see the change, and even if we don't see this change and the Liberal Party does come into place, we'll see some change in initiatives going forward that will help Canada.
Housing was a huge topic during this election. Do you think the results are going to impact how the housing market reacts to the winner of the election?
I think that housing has been so paramount and such a strong, contentious point over the last, 5-6 years in Canada, that right now, believe it or not, I feel like we have a lot of other pressing issues, which is tariffs and how that's going to impact our economy and businesses and the sovereignty of our country, that I feel that housing will take a bit of a back burner, unfortunately, to what needs to be done right now. I'm not saying it's going to go away, because I do think that each of these political platforms have come out, and we'll go through some of the initiatives that they talked about. So they do have housing as a forefront of what they need to do. I mean, they need to build more homes, but we need to have them affordable. But there's a lot that goes into that. There's lower interest rates. There's going to be a lot of breaking down some of the policies and rules for municipalities and provincial governments so that we can build housing effectively and to the goal that we need for the immigration that's come into our country, or the immigration that has left. Right? Like, where do we actually need housing right now? Because we've seen a lot leave already in the last probably 6 to 8 months. So I think that each party has its platform on where housing should be, but I feel that there's other pressing issues right now, given what's happened, south of the border. And, tariffs is the conversation right now of 2025. How's that going to impact us? We're still not really there. And the delays of what's coming with tariffs, I feel, is delaying what this government needs to do to help a lot of initiatives. They've come out with a lot of policies. They've come out with financial relief for industries that are affected by tariffs. But overall, I mean, talk to any Canadian right now. We're in a waiting game right now. No one knows how much it's going to affect. Yeah. If you listen to any news media outlet, like I do in the morning, I listen to Bloomberg, I mean, it's not positive, right? There's a lot of companies that are affected in the U.S. that ultimately will affect us. I mean, they're the number one trading partner. So how will it not affect us? But it's up to our government to really be proactive and make changes and start to be stronger interprovincially with trade to how, and also when you look at it internationally with trade to help with that. So it's a hard question for me to answer for you because I feel like that's the pressing issue. Housing is, but I feel like that is the pressing issue right now.
Yeah, I would love to know if we can break down, at least just between the Liberals and the Conservatives, what they were promising or what they were running on in regards to housing or all those different factors. Do you think we can pull up that chart you were
Yeah, I
talking
actually
about?
have a chart. Let's go through what a lot of the campaign platform was between Conservatives and Liberals. We had a 30-day election platform, basically. So it's not a lot of time for, I feel, Canadians to digest a lot of what the actual initiatives that each of the parties want to implement over the next 4 years. People won't know a lot of this, so it's good to know this, right? And let's talk about taxations. Conservatives talked about phasing in and cutting the lowest tax bracket to 12.75% over the next 4 years, increasing TFSAs by $5,000, which is good news. That helps with homeownership. Deferring capital gain taxes if reinvested. So I think capital gains to me is a bit of a gray area because we've had them implemented on investment properties, on second homes, and then it was deferred, and then apparently it was canceled. And then now we're looking at potentially some capital gains, but there's still a bit of a gray of what that is. Now, when I look at the Liberals, they talked about a 1% tax cut to the lowest bracket. So I think Conservatives are coming ahead because they're helping out with people in that lower tax bracket income amount. Liberals are funny because they talk about canceling capital gains, yet they're the ones that actually implemented it. And GST exemption of $1 million on a home for first-time home buyers. So what's interesting about that is that GST exemption, when the Liberals came out with $1 million, then the PC party actually came out with, if you were purchasing for $1.3 million for first-time home buyers. I feel like that's a better initiative because when you look at the price of housing right now, especially if you're looking in major center areas like Toronto or Vancouver, even in the outskirts of GTA area. Even Waterloo. It's over $1 million. Like it could be even 1.1. So I think removal of the GST, anything to help reduce the cost and help people manage that monthly mortgage payment is going to help out. So I think that's a good one. With the Conservatives sell 15% federal buildings for housing, I actually like that. I think there's a lot of land right now. This is the problem. And the federal government actually owns a lot of land and buildings that they do nothing with. I love the Conservatives' initiative is to be able to take some of this federal land and buildings and to be able to convert that into housing. I think that's really smart. I don't see any of that in the Liberal platform, but I do see the Liberals coming out with a $140 million Northern Housing Fund. Basically, to me, what that's saying is that we're giving up here in Southern Ontario. It's too unaffordable at this point. There's too many issues that are happening in terms of the cost of land to be able to build. And now we're just going to focus on building up north. I'm not saying not to build up north, but we need to fix what's broken. So you can see very different initiatives on the housing, like very different. It's not really targeting the goal of building 3.5 million homes. But do we actually, I don't even know if we're in that capacity of needing that anymore, given how much immigration has gone back. Yeah. There are stats out there that talked about 1 million people going back over the next 3-4 years out of Canada because of lack of housing, lack of employment. So where are we going to be sitting at on those numbers? I do still feel we're absolutely short on housing, but to what extent is that? Because we've had such a shift even 6 to 8 months.
Yeah.
I'm just going to get into a few of the other ones. I don't think we have to get into them all, but I think government spending, Conservatives, a $23.5 billion cut to consultants.
What does that mean?
There's a lot of programs that the government put into place where they hire consultants to be able to look at initiatives of projects that they want to do in the future. A lot of it has to do with climate change. If you look at that, they would hire secondary companies, not through the government, but alternative private companies to come in and do research over a long period of time or a short period of time to see, okay, is this viable? Do we need to go with this initiative? I don't think it's a bad thing. However, I know that the Liberal government in the past has been very excessive with it and have spent billions of dollars.
Like that app for COVID.
Exactly. Is it necessary? Do we need it? Why are we
investing billions into
when we've got housing issue, we've got a lack of affordability. So these are things where logically, as Canadians, we can sit back and say it doesn't make sense. I can see why the Conservative government look at this and say, okay, well, that's a lot of money, $23.5 billion that they're cutting back.
Yeah.
Where were we prior to that, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's a good initiative. Reduce foreign aid. That's a tough one. I think that it just depends on what's happening internationally, right? Where we're at with that. Defund CBC, keep Radio Canada. That's a big bone of contention for me because I feel that we've already had policies put in place by the Liberal government to hurt us in terms of being able to get proper information through our media. Mm-hmm. They had a bill passed. So where are we at with that? Why aren't we looking at actually reversing that bill? And I know it takes long to do that, but I think that at least this is a start.
Yeah.
For the Liberal government, AI-driven efficiencies. I mean, they were looking at billions of dollars and investing into AI. I think we need to fix our country. I'm not saying AI is not there, but do we have to invest so much money into this right now when we're already in a deficit and we're already dealing with so many other pressing issues? Cap public service size and $6.8 billion in interprovincial trade fund. I think the interprovincial trade fund is necessary given where we're at right now with tariffs in the U.S. It just depends on whether that tap's going to be turned on full from Trump or whether it's not going to be. But I think that that's a hard campaign initiative to go on when it's such an unknown out there. I think having stronger relations with the U.S. in terms of being able to try to work together as opposed to not is something that should be initiative for both of them. But, I mean, again, you're talking about a 35-day campaign trail. You can't go through everything, right?
Yeah.
Social programs. This one's interesting. So for the Conservatives, $34,000 in tax-free earnings for seniors. I think that should help because I think seniors are hurting right now. They shouldn't be taxed on a lot of what they're getting for pensions and CPP and old age. You're already on limited income, and the cost of living has gone up exponentially over the last even 10 years.
And good luck getting a job if you need one.
Exactly. And where's that going to happen for a lot of seniors? So I agree with that. When we look at the Liberal government expanding dental care, I mean, we already have policy that came in place for free dental care for seniors and for lower income and younger age group, which is costing billions of dollars. I'm not going to agree or disagree. I'm on the fence on that. Mm-hmm. But I mean, people need care for sure, but we're already, we've got a lot of issues besides dental care.
Honestly, from hearing all of this, the Liberals seem to have a very expensive...
Oh, they do. So if you look at it here over the next 4 years, Conservatives deficit, they're both going to have deficit. There's no doubt. It's hard to balance a budget when we're in the state we're in right now in Canada. But Conservatives are $100 billion over the next 4 years. And look at the Liberals, $225 billion.
Wow.
And if you look at the polls, which will show as well, it's perplexing to me that Canadians want to have such a high deficit. Like, where are we going to go with that? That's going to be, first of all, not good for us now, let alone futures.
And I think it's important to mention that when we talk about deficits, because this is something new to me. We're not just saying, oh, who cares? It's the government money. Maybe you don't care right now, but this is not just impacting you. This is going to impact generations to come.
Absolutely.
It'll be my children and my children's children who are paying that money off.
100%. And I think the problem is, and I don't blame Canadians, you have to be focused on, and people say put your oxygen mask on first, look at your financing, look at your bank account, look at, the people you love around you, make sure you take care of them first. And that's what people are doing. Because it's hard to see in the future when you're struggling paycheck to paycheck or wondering if you're going to have a job today. And to be in that mindset of, oh, I'm going to worry about the next generation. How can they be? And we weren't in such a state that we're in now where people are in survival. So I feel that, looking out for the future, people aren't because they're just trying to deal with today. Mm-hmm. So that's a hard one. But if you look at this is why I like this chart, because it really shows the big difference between the total amount of initiatives and the cost that it's going to be from the Conservatives versus the Liberals. Now, they have to eventually own up to this, and there will be metrics in place to measure this, and Canadians will judge them on this. But if you look at it, Conservatives are down. So new program spending is down, $34 billion, tax cuts, $75 billion. And then we've got the housing. We talked about housing initiatives. The big one is the GST, which is the campaign trail that both parties have been riding on. Yeah. The $1.3 million cap. If you look at the Liberals, $225 billion that they're going to be spending over 4 years, $130 billion on new program spending, only $22 billion in tax cuts. So there's not going to be a lot of tax cut, which means we're still getting taxed. Mm-hmm. We're taxed on top of taxed.
Well, someone's got to pay for it.
Yeah. Like, we got to look at ways to be able to reduce this,
Yeah.
right? And then again, the housing relief of $1 million. This is going to cost us a lot more under the Liberal Party platform, bottom line.
Yeah.
And where are we going to be in 4 years from now? So I will support whatever party comes into place, but cautiously optimistic, depending on who actually gets voted in, which we'll know tomorrow morning, right? So it will be interesting. I've spoken to a lot of people. It's funny that I find that there's a silent conservative vote out there. People are scared to actually say who they're voting for because they feel that they're going to be judged. And I feel that that's pretty sad, that we're in a country where people don't feel that they can actually voice their opinion. And then there's this, angry sentiment out there for a lot of people who are voting Liberal right now saying, we've had 9 years of destruction in our country on so many levels. Why aren't we looking for change? And I feel for everyone. I think that we're in a tough situation. And again, we're a country where people do not like change. Canada is not one where people do like change. They are very hawkishly conservative on making any drastic changes, and they're comfortable being uncomfortable. And I think that we have to really divert from that. We have to have change to be able to make our country better. At the sake of our sovereignty, I feel like we need to do it because we have so much at stake right now. And I do look at the future of Canada and Canadians and young people like yourselves that probably are thinking about things that when I was your age, I didn't think about. I never thought about not owning a home. I didn't think about struggling to buy my first home. I didn't question having my first child. I didn't question whether or not I was going to get a job. I was questioning the direction and purpose where I was aligned in terms of what I wanted to focus on for my career. Tell me what you think about at your age.
I come from an immigrant family, and I'm a first-generation immigrant in Canada. And we moved here for that opportunity to own a house, to work a great job, to live a good life. And now we've come to an age where so many people around me my age are thinking, if I want that opportunity, I have to look at moving out of Canada. So it's sad to think we don't have that opportunity here in Ontario. And even with all the promises that each party is making, it's still hard to see hope for us. I feel like we just kind of got the shit end of that stick.
It's so true. Like, I feel for you. I mean, I see more people my age that have, young people like yourselves in their 20s, and they're still living at home, and the longevity of that is unknown because it's tough. I mean, how do you even afford to rent and be able to save for a house, even with two incomes? Because most people have a car payment. A car payment nowadays is like, on average in Canada, it's $700. Like, when I was your age, a car payment was $210, and that was on the higher end.
Yeah.
Right? And again, you can't, I know it's like, well, they can say, cost of living was cheaper back then, but still, in terms of the percentage of income that we went towards housing and expenses, and then what you had to be able to save and be able to have fun, there was a more balanced approach. Like, there was 35 to 40% of your income was going towards your housing. So you had a lot of spread there to be able to have savings and investments and, future income to be able to save for housing. Now we're looking at 68 to 70% of your income going towards housing.
Yeah. And you sent me something this weekend that I had to kind of sit with because I was so sad to see it. And it was the new average age of a first-time home buyer in Ontario.
Yeah, that was pretty profound. I had to read that a couple of times as well. I knew it was creeping up, but when I first started in the mortgage industry 26 years ago, first-time home buyer was about 24 years old. And a lot of my clientele were first-time home buyers. A lot of young people I really mentored and helped them build residential wealth through owning homes and be able to build up from that. I slowly through the years saw that age group creep up, but this has been a real shift. I mean, when you look at it since 2005, we've had a big shift from like 25, 26 to now 40 years old. And
40 years
40
old.
years.
Are you kidding me?
And specifically here in Ontario. So Ontario and Vancouver, they're saying that's the new age for first-time home buyers. So think about how much that's pushing back just getting into life, getting married, having your first child. By 40, people typically in the past would be on their second home. They would have moved up. Now we're at 40 just getting a condo or the problem I feel we're in is because housing has increased so much, right? Our housing has doubled since 2005, but our income has only gone up 16% in Canada.
Wow.
This is why I'm saying 68 to 70% of your income is going towards housing. How does that change? Because we're in a conundrum where values still have to go up, I feel, for the market to be sustainable and viable on real estate. People need to sell and buy. That's what moves the market. If you don't see values go up, people will be stagnant. And now, again, real estate's a long game. It's not a short stint, but you still have to see values marginally go up year over year. We're seeing kind of pockets of increases depending on what's going on in the market.
Yeah.
Seeing it go flat a couple months, go up a little bit, but then maybe go down. Right now, I think we're in a bit of a downward cycle depending on what market you're in. But overall, if we're hurting on values increasing and people can't afford it, what's the alternative? We're going to see values drastically drop. Then you're going to see our economy is based on the housing market because there's so many different branches of the housing market where we have employment and where our economy is derived from. And if we see values drastically drop, we could end up being not only in a recession, but a depression. And I don't want to be, I'm an optimistic person, but I'm cautiously optimistic. I don't know where the fix is on that because we've been so long trying to fix the housing market, but not actually moving the needle. Is it too broken, right? Like, I don't know where the correction is going to be on that.
Not only do we have to think about that, but we also have to think about how many Canadians are coming up for renewal this year and next year.
Absolutely.
How will that affect them?
Well, I think that, we've got record amount of mortgage renewals coming up in Canada. It's over like 1.4 million of mortgages coming up this year and probably around the same, I know, next year, if not higher. Here's where I think we're going to hit a bit of an issue next year on renewals. If we see that values are not going up and we see them pretty flat, which if you looked at even a month ago, we were seeing projections of values still going up healthy 5 to 8% in certain markets. And that's changed a lot with what's going on with the tariffs. And that's still an unknown. It's hard to forecast. I'm going to tell you in this environment, no market expert could forecast accurately given the unknown that's out there. And it's held by one person. We all know who that is in the States, right? To make that initiative, because that's going to drive where we go. But it's up to Canada to change that, right? And if we are become very strong as a country, I think our housing market will end up picking up because people will stay and feel this camaraderie within Canada to stay and build housing and thrive in businesses. And we could end up actually having our housing market pick up in value next year. But where we're going to hit ahead, I think, next year with renewals is this will be when renewals come up, especially in Q4 of 2026. Those houses 5 years ago were bought at the peak of the market. So I'll give you an example. A detached house, let's just say even in our market, okay? A detached house 5 years ago bought in the peak of the market, the average detached house was almost 1.2 million. Crazy, right? In Kitchener, Waterloo, Ontario, that was the average price of a detached house. Now, if we look at the same house today, that house is probably sitting around $850,000. So a significant decrease. These mortgages coming up for renewal next year, if the market continues to drop a bit, that value will come down. Where are they going to look at moving their mortgage, right? Because their value has dropped. So they're going to be stuck and they're not going to be able to refinance their mortgage if they have to consolidate debt. Most people have debt. They probably got a high interest car loan or they've used a line of credit at some point, whether it's home expenses, someone's been laid off or had costs with their kids, extracurricular activities. People still have a life. And on average, people are carrying about $50,000 to $60,000 worth of unsecured debt with interest rates over 20%. So if we can't refinance your mortgage because values have dropped and you're coming up for renewal next year and you can't transfer your mortgage out because you're going to another lender and your value is not there, then you've got to actually renew with your existing lender. And what are these lenders, banks, going to do? They're probably going to look at that situation because you're not going to be the only one in it. Everybody else that bought, and we have to remember there was 4 times worth of mortgage activity 5 years ago, okay? So what are these banks going to do? They're going to price up those renewals. That is something that I'm concerned. I don't think a lot of people have thought about that. So what's the correction in this? Well, I'm seeing a lot more people actually break their mortgages now before coming up for renewal. so that we can take advantage of where interest rates are at or get them on a path of, with as bank prime is coming down. Potentially there's some equity there. It just, again, because we've kind of seen these ups and downs of values go up and down. So has to see where they're at right now. Also with employment, if people are in certain sectors where employment could be a factor because of what's happened with tariffs or what can be happening with tariffs, breaking your mortgage now to get you into that path of consolidation or transferring your mortgage out, getting into a better mortgage rate. You got to remember, even back then, rates were low, but every month that went on, rates started going back up again, right? So now that we're starting to see lower interest rates, I'm seeing right now not a bad time for people to actually break their mortgage earlier, right? Mm-hmm. But next year's a concern for me, and I don't think a lot of people have thought about that. It's a hard one because I'd hate to see values go up too much. But in the same token, for me, I almost want to see them go up a bit more to help these people that are coming up for renewal.
Yeah. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
We had so much volume that year and prices were insane compared to what they are now. So for someone to come up for renewal and have their house value be much less than what they actually got their house for, that's stressful.
And think about this, like when we looked at it last year, beginning of last year, so in 2024, and in the mid-year, we didn't have that new rule come into place until August of last year, where they were alleviating and eliminating the stress test if you're looking to transfer your mortgage. So what was happening prior to that, a homeowner was coming up for renewal, they had to be stress tested, which is that rate's 2% higher than where the contract rate is if you were looking to move your mortgage. And people weren't qualifying because interest rates were sitting around 5.5%, 6%, which means you had to qualify at 8%. I mean, who's qualifying on that nowadays, wow. Right? And remember, values were still expensive, right? Like people bought 5 years before that at higher rates, not next year's rates, but higher rates and higher values. So with the elimination of the stress test, it worked. It helped people be more competitive, to be able to look at options and choices, get more of a competitive interest rate. But prior to that, the existing lenders were taking advantage of clients and increasing their interest rate at time of renewal. So I feel like we're going to get back to something like that next year because these banks will know that these clients have nowhere to go because their value's not there. And they're not going to be able to pull out money. They're not going to be able to transfer it out because their value won't be there. Loan to value won't be there. It's really going to be interesting in the real estate market. I honestly think that we function so much better on lower interest rates. And I don't mean rock bottom rates. Everybody's got to get that out of their head. I'm not talking about the 2%, 1.5%. But even if we got back to like 2.89, 2.99, remember, values have increased. People's mortgage balances are a lot higher than where they were before. Their income hasn't increased enough to compensate how much homes have increased in the value of mortgages. So we need that rate reduction. And we were on a great path this year of rates coming down prior to these announcements of this Liberation Day from Trump and tariffs, because we were actually on a good trajectory of interest rates coming down, values going back up again, in a reasonable way, right? And people going back into the market. Having said that, I think that, talking about the housing market, people are I find a lot smarter with making choices on their mortgages right now. They're looking at their renewal now, even if it's coming up next year, because they're really cautious on what's going on in the market. So they're making, I find, smarter decisions because they're being proactive on their financing. And that's a good thing. I think people are understanding more now than ever what's going on in the economy, to as much as they can, and looking for that professional outlet to help support them with it.
For anyone coming up for renewal or even wanting to be a first-time home buyer, you need a good team. You need someone who has your back and who knows these things, because we can't be expected to know everything. We can't be expected to forecast or to have the mindset to think about all these other factors that may impact my mortgage when I'm just stressed to get approved for my mortgage. So having someone like you and like our team to back you and really stand with you in this decision that could change so much about your life is so key to success.
I think that's why it's so important to have a team, right? To make sure that you've got that support system to be able to educate you and navigate and pivot where you need to do, right? Because we know it's always ever changing what's going on in the market, and it becomes overwhelming. So having a professional team like mine is able to really help you know that there's someone in your corner, right? No matter where we have different changes in our economy. And I think that's really important, to know you're not alone. Yeah. A lot of people feel they're alone. and to know you're not alone, whether it's your financing, I call it financial wellness, right? Which is, where are you at with your mindset? Having that open conversation, having someone to trust. What are questions that you might think you can't ask? You can, right? Having that open dialogue is so important going forward. And I think that that's something I've really prided myself and my team on, because having someone that truly cares about people and home ownership is something that I've been so proud on over the last few years.
Yeah, and that's why we do this. That's why we're on Beyond the
Exactly.
Mortgage, because we want to have this open conversation with people. We want you guys to send us your questions, send us your concerns. Let's have those conversations.
And let's keep the conversation going, right? It's important that we know what people are finding is challenging right now. And to your point, Daniela, send in the questions, right? We don't know unless you tell us,
Yes.
right? We can make assumptions, but again, we're the professionals on this side. We have to hear from you, right? So you letting us know what your concerns are, what you're struggling with, will help us be able to have better podcasts, have better conversation on what is really pressing right now. I'm looking forward to our next podcast, because by then we'll know who actually is going to be our next prime minister. And it will be interesting to see how the country reacts to that and how we move forward. But I'm always optimistic. I say no matter what happens in our market, we always 100% recover. It just takes time. And I appreciate everyone listening to us today. To anyone listening, please click the subscribe button. It would mean the world to us as we look on continuing to provide more value in content. I'm looking forward to our next podcast. And to all of you listening, you've got this.